NAICS code in, and it will show you all the active procurements that are currently buying that NAICS code. Now, we're going to work with the RFPs that are out there today, but some of them, like, it's too late to actually get into it because they're already in the process, but at least it starts to give you ideas as to what you need to be thinking about with solicitations for that particular NAICS code. So the first thing that you'll see is a standard form cover sheet. And that standard form has just basic information. Like, is this a draft RFP or is this a real RFP? Who's the contracting officer? Who's the customer buying it? When is the proposal due date? All this basic information will be on this one-page cover sheet. So that's section A. Section B, think of it as a menu. Here's where you're going to put every single product or service that you're going to offer under this contract, and you're going to give them prices for every year of the contract. So here's your price for year 1, here's your price for year 2, here's your price for year 3. When the contract gets awarded, if I'm the government, I can't order anything from you unless it's on this contract baseline, this menu, schedule, this section B. You, the contractor, can't sell me anything unless it's on Schedule B. So let's say, for example, you're going to sell this computer system and you start to put it all together and the government's like, well, wait a minute, where's the power cord? Oh, I didn't price any power cord. They can't buy a power cord from you unless you add a power cord through a contract modification to that baseline, and then once it's added, then they can order it from you. So the problem that I mentioned with EMC before, it was a problem because they ordered something that was on the contract. My subcontractor delivered something that wasn't on the contract. Okay. Section C is the actual technical requirements for what you have to deliver. So when I ask you to look at your existing product and how you offer it, and then to look at section C, I want you to see if there's any disconnects between what you offer and what they are asking for. Because when the government was doing developmental stuff, where they would say, we're so special, we're unique, we're going to come up with all these crazy requirements, and the prices ended up skyrocketing, the government made a shift to commercial items. So they're trying to buy things in the manner that you sell them. But some contracting officers are old, and they still have their head around, well, you still should be meeting all my requirements, even though we're doing commercial items. And so you have to look at what are their specific requirements, and can you meet them as is? If you can't, you have a business decision to make. Are you going to modify your products to meet the government requirement? Or are you going to choose not to offer that product or service to the government? Because here's what happens on the flip side. Your other alternative is to submit your proposal and say, we can't meet requirement 4-2. And the government, and you have to put that right in your cover letter so they see it right off the bat. Some government agencies will try to figure out a way to work with you. Some will just say, you're out of the competitive range. So let me give you an example. Let's say the government wants your standard warranty, and then they want another year of maintenance. And let's say you don't do maintenance. You do your warranty, but you don't do maintenance. So you can either decide that for your government customers, instead of giving a 3-month warranty, that you're going to give a year to cover this maintenance thing that they've got going. That's a business decision you make to offer that additional warranty for your government customers. If you choose not to do that, then you say, I'm only providing 3 months of warranty and I don't provide maintenance. So the government gets your proposal, sees that you've taken an exception, and they can either decide to disqualify you, because let's face it, you're now more work to them, and I don't have time for more work, so I can just kick you out of the competitive range. Or they can say, well, I have a maintenance provider over here. I'm going to take his prices for 9 months, add it to your warranty, and add his price to your proposal so that I'm comparing apples to apples when I'm comparing you to your other competitors who didn't take an exception. But it's their choice. Everybody with me? Packaging and marking is usually one of those things that you don't pay a whole lot of attention to until you actually start shipping your product. But sometimes the government puts requirements in there. So for example, one time they told us how to package and mark the computers we were shipping to them. And to evaluate that we were doing it properly, we had to ship a computer to them using the packaging and marking. And that was part of their evaluation criteria. And the reason why they were being so specific was because they were going to airdrop these things behind enemy lines. And so they had to be hardened. And they wanted to make sure that you could accommodate that. So packaging and marking can even have requirements that you have to pay attention to in the proposal. Because if you're having to harden something, hardening the shipping container, that's going to be more expensive. So you want to make sure you know what those costs are. Because when you submit your prices to the government, everything that's in sections A through M, you have to do. Unless you take a specific exception, and I just talked to you about the downside of taking an exception, you have to give them exactly what they want. Or you have to submit a question and hope they'll change the requirement, which they've been known to do. But get it through your head that when you are submitting your proposal the very first time, like they issue the RFP and you submit your proposal, make sure your prices cover everything that you have to do, not just in Section C, but in the context of all this other stuff. Because not that the government often does this, but they could accept your proposal as is, exactly the way you bid it the first time, and it's a done deal. You were contractually obligated to provide those products and services for the price that you stated. So this is one of those things where you have to get it right the first time. Why is the government so strong on that? Because in the old days what would happen is the government would issue an RFP. They would take so long to get the RFP done because they had to do all those things we just talked about in the previous 3 slides. And in order to make up time, what did they do to our proposal time? Right? So we were like, oh my God, you know, like frantically trying to get this thing done. And a lot of time we would get direction from senior leaders that just basically said, just throw whatever you can over the transom to get it in on time. So you put this, you know, you throw something together and get it over there, and the government would evaluate it. It would take them, you know, months to evaluate it. And while they were evaluating, now was when we were really working on the proposal, right? Because now we had time to do it, because they were, you know, occupied for 2 months. And then at the time when they would issue clarifications to us, ask us questions about that first piece of now we had the full-blown, and we were basically saying, okay, all that evaluation you just did, here's a brand new proposal, evaluate this one instead. So they'd basically be back to square one to reevaluate that whole new proposal. So the government said, halt, time out. Now, when you submit your proposal, they start evaluating, and unless they have a specific question about what you've done, those are the only places you can make changes, which is why you have to get it right the first time. Which is why you have to make a really good business decision as to whether you're going to go after it or not. So if you're behind the 8 ball, don't go after it. Wait until you're fully prepared to be able to embark on this. Inspection and acceptance. The government has a right to come in and inspect what you're doing. So if you have a manufacturing process, and let's say, for example, you're creating this bottle, and this bottle comes down the manufacturing line, and this cap is being manufactured over here, and at some point these are all dumped in a bin, and these are all dumped in a bin, and then at some point you have some kind of packaging that fills it up with water and twists the lid on. The government can't say, while this bottle is in process, stop the production, I'm going to go pull out one bottle and see how it's being manufactured, because what would that do to your cost of producing this bottle? It goes up, right, because you stop the production line. So they can't cause you more money, but when this falls into the bin and it's waiting for these caps to get done, they can go over and pick one of the bottles out and inspect it to make sure that it's met all the quality standards. So they have that right. So they can't stop your production line, but all that gets defined up front in the inspection clauses. Acceptance we talked about, and why is that important?
That's when you get paid, basically.
They have to accept before you can submit an invoice, and then you get paid. Deliveries or performance, this tells you where the deliveries need to occur. And when you set up your SAM record, that's that System for Acquisition Management, you'll say within the continental United States or outside the continental United States, and they'll tell you in this contract where the locations are that you have to deliver. Section G is contract administration data. This is basically who the contracting officer is, how you're going to work together on a day-to-day basis, how do you get building access to the government locations, you know, when the government facility is open, federal holidays are listed, those kind of things, all the general stuff about the contract. I'll talk about special contract clauses in a second. Let's go to so I are the FAR clauses. So when the source selection authority, the contracting officer, and the program manager get together, remember that triad slide? The program manager is going to come up with what section of the RFP do you think?
Could you say that again?
Who defines the need? The program manager defines the need. And where do we have all those technical requirements? What section of the RFP? Let's say section C, shall we? So the program manager is going to define section C. Yeah. The contracting officer is going to say, what do you know about this requirement? What do you really know? For example, do you know how many you need of this widget? Do you know when they need to be delivered? Do you know where they need to be delivered? And sometimes the program manager is going to say, absolutely. You know, we're deploying a battalion to Afghanistan. I know exactly what I need. I know where they need to be. I've got all this down. In which case, the government can do a firm fixed price contract because they know exactly what their requirements are. But oftentimes, the government's like, not really clear. I know I'm going to need like systems engineering services, or I'm going to need some number of cans of paint, but I don't know if it's 50 or 500. And so the requirements are more iffy, right? So then the government does the cost reimbursable contract where you put each contract line, each item on your contract as a separate line item. And if the government needs to buy 5, they multiply times your price, and that's how much they pay you. So all of those, so based on the answers to the question the contracting officer asks the program team, that drives what kind of contract they're going to use. Is it going to be a firm fixed price? Is it going to be a cost reimbursable contract? That decision then causes the contracting officer to go to the FAR and to open the FAR to whatever contract type they've selected. So if it's a firm fixed price, they go pull all the FAR clauses regarding firm fixed price. If it's cost reimbursable, they pull all the cost reimbursable. And there's a lot of different variations on theme with each of these contract types, but we're just keeping it simple. So the government doesn't really go to the FAR, open up the 1,500 pages and pull out a chunk, because as if these RFPs aren't big enough so as it is, that's going to add another 200 pages, right? So they're not going to do that. All they're going to do is they're going to incorporate by reference. What does that mean? They give you the number of the clause, they give you the title of the clause, they give you the date of the clause. And then it's up to you to use your Google, which by the way, could not use it all in China, or Facebook, or to my daughter's chagrin, Instagram. We couldn't even order, like, we couldn't even, like, I could go to Expedia or like the Hilton Honors Program to book the hotel, like, really tight. But you would Google that particular FAR clause, and it would pop up with what that language was, and then you would read through it and just make sure you were good with everything. So that's how Section I is handled, the FAR clauses. Now we go back to Section H, and these are the special contract clauses. I'm not going to do it. Section H is special contract clauses. And what those are, so think about your own companies, right? What has a contractor done that messed with you? Like, and because of that messing with you, you now have a clause in every single contract that goes out to prevent that from happening again. Anybody have an example? Yeah. So maybe somebody was your subcontractor and you've got a good working relationship, and now all of a sudden they decide to compete with you for the same customer business. Okay. So that messed with your business in that moment. So you want to make sure that you have that same clause in all your future contracts so that never happens to you again. Think of the special contract clauses as those kind of clauses. Somebody's messed with a particular agency, the head of the contracting authority has decided, well, that's not going to happen to us again. And they put it as a clause in all their future contracts. Everybody good on contract clauses? Okay, J is list of attachments. So this gets into the problem we talked about before. Govini. Govini is the name of the company that found that they were putting pictures of all the nuclear regulatory plants all over the place. So a list of attachments. So basically, the government has given you all of this information, but Section J is where they like sit there and think like a contractor. Okay, if a contractor can't talk to me, what information do I need to provide them so that they can price this and give me a proposal that I'm not wasting my time on? So it could be a list of a glossary of terms, it could be a blueprints, it could be other specifications, it could be whatever they want. That's what Section J is. So for every RFP you look at, those are going to be different. K are representations, certifications, and any other statement. So basically, I have to represent certain things about my company to the government. So I represent that I am an equal employment opportunity provider. I represent that I have anti-harassment classes in the workplace. I represent that I'm a drug-free workplace. All these kind of things are examples of things that you have to represent to the government. And you represent them in your SAM system when you create your SAM record. So what happens is you put all this data in SAM one time, and before you submit any new proposal, you go back into SAM and verify that it's all accurate. So let's say, for example, you put all your information into SAM and you put all your NAICS codes of all the existing products and services that you have. And then let's say in 6 months, you add another product. You would have to, and now you're going to go after an RFP for that new product. You would have to go into SAM and make sure your NAICS code, the new NAICS code, was in your SAM record. Those are the things that you represent. Other things are certifications. So I can self-certify that I'm a woman-owned business. Because in SAM, it says that I'm the president of my company, and it asks me whether I'm male or female. So the fact that I check female certifies that I'm a woman-owned business. If you're a veteran or a veteran service disabled company, you need to go through the Veterans Administration with your discharge papers, and you too can get certified, but VA has to certify you. So that's not a self-certification, that's a VA certification. If you want to find out whether you're hub zone or labor surplus area, you can go to websites and see whether your zip code qualifies as one of those 2 types of set-aside programs. If you're a historically black college or university, there's a list of all of them to see whether you apply. If you're a the small business certifications, you can go after the